Hi, my name's Eric. I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for about 10 years, working in the OR here in Minnesota. I grew up in St. Paul, was a teacher for 4 years before I went back to school to be a nurse. Anyway, my sister still lives in Minneapolis, and she lives in Powderhorn Park, just blocks from George Floyd, just blocks from where the Nicole Goods murder happened. And here's an on-the-ground account from a real citizen. My sister can confirm all of this guy's story. His name's Brendan, and I grew up listening to his music and stuff. I gotta pile some snow here, but basically, just listen to it. It's the real thing that's happening on the ground in Minneapolis. So here it is, and it's a shortened version. You can find the real version, the whole version, on Brother Ali's podcast, the Travelers Podcast. Thanks.
Hey man, good to hear your voice. I want to give you a report on Minneapolis, but I don't even know what to say. Believe me when I say that you can't understand unless you're here. And the only people who could understand is people who have lived under siege before. This is not like anything that I've ever seen in my life, like not even remotely close. There were 3 or 4 weeks where it was about what we expected, where a lot of ICE agents were in town. They were doing a lot of abductions, but they were all targeted. They were going to this address looking for this person. They were going to this kitchen because they heard that they hire undocumented folks. They were looking for specific individuals or acting on specific tips. My memory is that Renee was murdered on Wednesday. That Monday was when we really saw a shift happen. We had heard that 1,200 additional agents were coming, and then later that number ballooned to 2,000. But it wasn't just the increased presence. It was really clear that there was a new tactic in place, and it was anybody who's not white is in danger, specifically brown or East African looking. I mean, with my own eyes, on multiple occasions, I've watched them pull up to bus stops indiscriminately, not even ask questions, just grab people and throw anybody that they can catch, grab them and throw them in the van and peel off. The whole city is swarming with them. They act completely lawless. They drive down little side residential streets going no less than 60 miles an hour in the dead of winter. You know what happens in Minneapolis. Like, not only is the ground slippery, but the curbs move in. So these are incredibly narrow, very, very slippery. You know, you lived here for years, you know, there's like 2 inches thick of just solid ice. And these guys are just flying through our neighborhoods. If they get to a red light and there's somebody in front of them, they'll literally push a car through a red light into the intersection and then peel off. Their tactics have now moved to pulling fire alarms in apartment buildings and workplaces, and then looking to catch anybody that comes running out. They're calling in bomb threats to MPS, hoping to catch brown students when they come outside. I mean, it's just beyond the imagination. You know, I have decades at this point of experience standing face to face with police officers in riot gear in very charged situations. And as much as I detest the police, I can now recognize the training that they have received in non-escalation. I would hesitate to say de-escalation. Like, these guys, I know you don't like to cuss, but these guys have such small dick energy, man, that they're like fragile frat boys with just egos that are so easy to bruise, that immediately turn into violent, reckless, lawless, completely unhinged behavior. And it's not like a bad apple where it's like, whoa, that guy's off the chain. Like, if that guy goes off the chain, then everybody has his back and suddenly everybody's off the chain. Like it is really volatile and really dangerous here. The flip side of it is that I've also never seen a community organize in such thorough, selfless, and self-organized, like leaderless ways. You know, it's funny you said, who should we talk to in Minneapolis? And my mind went completely blank because there's not really a face of this. There's not really anybody even behind the scenes. I mean, there's lots of people behind the scenes. That's almost the point. There's so many people behind the scenes. But there's really not anybody leading this. And yet it's so well organized. And someday I'll tell you a lot and it'll be fascinating. But it'll be when we're sipping tea together somewhere, not over the phone. But, you know, examples that I'm happy to share over the phone are that on a school by school basis, almost every school in Minneapolis has, with no training, no leader other than like maybe a couple parents that sort of get thrust into the role and then shine in it. Each school has individually organized everything from like any student that doesn't feel safe. We will set up a taxi service with protocol, like safety protocols that isn't just like, here's your ride. It's like, here's your ride. Here's the car that drives a block ahead of you. Here's the car that drives a block behind you. Every day to school, every day from school. In addition, every family that needs it, no questions asked, is adopted by another family. We do all your grocery shopping for you now. And it's a mixture of hitting up all the food, like you give us your list of needs. And there are so many different food banks that have popped up, from like restaurants that are stepping up to just community members who are doing this, and not in one-off, like pat yourself on the back, I did my part kind of ways, but like legitimately building infrastructure that's really beautiful and sustainable, at least in a medium term sense, you know. What is buzzing? Don't know what that is. Hang on, I'm going to send this off and figure out what's going on.
Just to break in and give some context so that it can be understood, this voice note cut off at this point because BK got notifications on some other devices, like in other places in his house, of like messages and stuff. And so those noises were so alarming and concerning to him that he actually stopped recording so that he could check and see what was going on. And so what you'll hear now is the voice note that he sent after that.
Okay. Yeah, that was just a phone call. Right now, my nervous system is like really not on edge, but just like highly tuned to unfamiliar sounds. So it's kind of hard to describe, especially over the phone, but there's so much of this reality right now that is defined by sounds. Yeah, it's really dark here right now. It's really clear to me that the people who are here, the ICE agents, are people who have been fed years of these narratives about democratic metropolitan cities. Not so much about Minneapolis, but you know, New York, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, over and over and over again, Trump and Fox News, and there's just this constant drumbeat of their hellholes. They're under siege, their cities on fire, they're roving gangs, and like that used to all feel so ridiculous to me and just like a cheap ploy to get people on your side. And now the reality of what that has created, like what that has bred, is really clear to me. Like, these people, I've been face to face with them so many times in the last several weeks, and they really think we're their enemy. Like, enemy combatant enemy, not just like ideological enemy. They really think that they're here to like liberate a city from the people who live there. There is so much hatred and so much cruelty. There's like a real culture of cruelty. It's like a mixture. It really feels like a mixture of people who have been playing Call of Duty type games. I don't even know if that's like the popular thing anymore, but like that kind of game that they've like spent their whole childhood and like, you know, like their early 20s just playing hours and hours of this. And when they're not doing that, they're like owning the libs on the internet where there's like no consequences and people aren't actual humans. You know what I mean? There's just sort of a concept of an enemy. And now they've been given a ton of money and basically let off the leash in a city that they think is, you know, a hellscape for them to like do the Lord's work in. And it's so dangerous. And it's just, it's a weight and a fear and a sadness and a shock that is just heavy on the whole city. In the last, today's Wednesday, so Monday, Tuesday, between those 2 days, I had 3 different grown men, all 3 of them until recently strangers to me. 2 of them, my elder, openly, just uncontrollably sob to me, just completely lose control of their emotions in a way that just a way that I know I don't know them well enough to be inside of their psyche. But just culturally and the way that they hold themselves and the way that they normally talk, I could just tell that these aren't people who just throw their emotions around. You know, and one of them is a native man, registered to a tribe, absolutely a citizen, more claim over this land than anybody. God damn it. He handed over his vehicle to me. We'd never spoken a word to each other until 24 hours prior to that. He handed over his van to me because he and his partner, who recently had surgery, didn't feel safe and were fleeing the city, and didn't even feel safe getting gas. He's your neighbor. He and his partner live like 2 blocks from your house here. And to get gas, it occurred to me as I was driving over there. I was just driving around the east side of the lake and then curved around, and it drops you right at the gas station. You know what I mean? I do a lot of driving, people. I also do a lot of other things that give me a pretty keen insight into the routes that these people take. I really have a sense of where you're more likely to be safe versus not, in terms of just being outside, being exposed. And like, I can't think of a safer route than the route from his house to that gas station and back. But it didn't seem ridiculous at all to me for him to be afraid, even just to do that. And he wouldn't even let me do it until the cover of night. You know, but just as much as there's like this omnipresence of malice and hatred and danger, there's also very literally an omnipresence of people who have put their life on hold to help safeguard what we have here. I mean, literally, you drive in any direction in almost every corner, every major corner, all four sides of that corner. There's people posted up